Well, we start here. South African Airways and its subsidiaries have featured prominently in the first part of the state capture inquiry report. Dudu Myeni, at the helm at the time, was chief among those fingered in several dodgy dealings. There's a growing calls to prosecute those responsible for the airline's grounding, but many ordinary South Africans doubt anything will come from the released report. Our reporters, Heidi, Giokos, as well as Aviwe, Mtila, are following that story, and they join us now live for this conversation. Heidi, good afternoon to you, as well as Aviwe. Let's start with you. Part one of the report touches on SAN as well as its subsidiaries. It's clear as day that according to the report, under Dudu Myeni, SAA actually deteriorated.
Yes, certainly. We do know that from about 2012, 2013, when Dudu Myeni took over as acting chairperson of SAA board, things started unraveling, and you had board members deciding to resign abruptly and labeling Dudu Myeni as a bully, saying that she had an intent to go against all governance protocols at the airline, and she was just deliberate in her actions. She went against certain deals that were supposed to bring in billions of rands for SAA, going back on board resolutions that were decided on, and then saying, oh, sorry, actually, maybe we should go and lease 10 aircraft instead of 2 after she decided to change that deal. So the report truly fingers Dudu Myeni and all of this, saying she was the center of the state-owned entity collapsing. And what's important here, Faith, is the fact that the state capture reports highlights the fact that state-owned entities are supposed to render a service to the South African public, to South African citizens. And it was clear that the state was indeed captured, and that it appears as though state-owned entities were used to benefit certain people, and the Gupta family have also been centered to all of this. What's very unfortunate, though, from the state capture reports is the fact that Dudu Myeni failed to answer to key questions, and how she was implicated by a number of people, former ministers, former finance ministers, and public enterprises ministers, saying she did not want to incriminate herself, which made it very difficult for the state capture report to put her version to the public. And all the versions made against her and how she's been implicated is uncontested. I want us to go back to a soundbite when Dudu Myeni is asked questions and she just refuses to answer.
The question requires you to say whether you know or you don't know, and that it may be an operational matter might mean that you don't know, but there may be operational matters that you know. So it's more about what you know or what you don't know.
May I then, I appreciate that you've given me clarity. Then can I then invoke my privilege to say I would not like to respond to the question in case I incriminate myself?
Well, yeah, Kwinana has also been implicated with her not knowing what's happening, costing SAA millions, isn't it?
Yes, so Ms. Kwinana was an SAA board member and, of course, very crucial in certain decisions that were taken at SAA while she was board member. And the Commission, if you remember, Faith, was very agitated when Kwinana testified, because they felt as though she was not answering. She had no idea why she signed certain deals off, and how she was involved in basically bringing SAA to its knees. What's interesting here is that the Zondo Commission questioned her abilities and skills as a chartered accountant. And when we listen to the soundbite next with the interaction between Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, who's also the chairperson of the Commission, and Kwinana, it's very clear that there was a lot of agitation. What's also important to highlight is the state capture report says that Dudu Myeni and Kwinana, it seems as though when they took over and they were part of SAA, there was a deliberate there was it seems as though the governance issues at SAA declined as soon as they came in as board members and as the chair of SAA. And it was not clear as to why they just did not want SAA to thrive. There were deals that were signed off, they shouldn't have been signed off. Aircraft that were supposed to be leased were not leased when they were supposed to. A very important code-sharing agreement between Emirates and SAA was cancelled at the very last minute. And the Commission says that the actions of Dudu Myeni and Kwinana amount to fraud, and that it does not seem as though Kwinana understood her role as a chartered accountant. Let's listen to that interaction.
So how could you approve a contract that you did not know? Because you have said you don't know that contract. I've just stopped you from going back to the 2012 contract now to remind you that Ms. Hofmeyr is talking about the March 2016 contract. Now, she has shown you a resolution. You agree that you approved. So how could you have approved a contract without knowing it?
Considering that it is stated like this, Chair, if you say, then I approved here, that is fine. Let us continue, Chair.
No, but the question remains, how could you have approved a contract you did not know?
Chair, I didn't think that this is a contract. I thought we were approving only the terms and conditions, not the whole contract. The whole contract would have the whole lot of
Ms. Kwinana,
including the price and everything.
Ms. Kwinana,
and then the terms of conditions.
Ms. Kwinana,
Chair.
You are a chartered accountant. You are a chartered accountant.
Well, it's disappointing, isn't it, Heidi? One wonders how long can you completely play ignorant to not even understanding the operations when it comes to it? Because at the end of the day, it costs significantly. And many would say that taxpayers being at the forefront of this, isn't it?
Certainly, and I think this is the big issue here, is that state-owned entities are supposed to provide a service to South Africans, and it's very clear in the state capture reports that that was not the intention, and that certain people were placed in these state-owned entities to provide a service either to the Gupta family or a hidden intention here. And this is the big issue here, is what's going to happen after the state capture reports. And we do know that the state capture reports, even in part 1, clearly highlights that the state was captured and that there were key people at play here. So it's very worrying, and it's very sad to see that our state-owned entities were used here and taken advantage of.
Well, speaking of which, Aviwe, just to bring you in here, because we cannot ignore what has been said around TNA Media, basically being made an example of how state capture actually operated. So just in terms of how TNA Media now operated, what are the details around that story?
Faith, as much as my colleague Heidi Giokos points out that the state has been captured, you rightly put it. The perfect example of this was cited as TNA Media. We do understand that it cited unjustified public spending between state-owned entities, highlighting Eskom, Transnet, as well as SAA, as well as the Gupta-owned TNA Media. You do understand that it owned the New Age newspaper as well as the New Age breakfast that happened at the SABC between 2011 and 2017. Now, we do understand over there that money was channeled from these state-owned entities into TNA Media, whether it's for advertising or whether to just fund that breakfast show that happened at the SABC. We do understand it does not stop there. Also, the GCIS, that annual budget of it, about 600 million rand, was also some of it channeled to TNA Media. And some of those people that tried to stand in the way of that were dealt with, and dealt with quite speedily. One example would be the former CEO of that GCIS, Themba Maseko, who back in 2013, 2010, in December, when he tried just to not adhere to the Gupta calls and so on, he was dealt with quite speedily. By January 2011, fired there by the then former president, we do understand. It did not stop there. Also, South African Revenue Service was not spared from the brunt of the state capture itself. We do understand that the private sector colluded with the executives as well as former President Jacob Zuma in just rendering SARS, capturing SARS and rendering it ineffective. Tom Mayane's appointments also raised eyebrows over there, which we do understand the former president mentioning Tom Mayane's appointment way before it was actually appointment. Also, Bain & Co. So there's a lot in this. Also, Bain & Company, basically. We do understand the consulting agency. It was made by former President Jacob Zuma as well as Tom Myeni before there was an official contract and tender. In fact, the report itself suggested that Tom Myeni should be charged, the former commissioner of SARS, for perjury for lying to Parliament. It details the rot really that happened there. And in some of it, I talked to people on the ground, ordinary people, just to get their sentiments on what should happen now. Do they believe that government has teeth? This is what they had to say.
They won't arrest them. It's just, I don't know if I can say they are just wasting our tax money. I don't know. But no, they won't arrest them. It's just wasting our time for nothing.
Normally it just dies and nobody says anything afterwards. So we really do hope that something will happen to the people who's responsible for it.
Come on, this is the South African government, and how we live in this world is full of corruption. So why would there be accountability and responsibility taken when there's no one, when there is problems? Do you know what I mean? There's no one to look at, there's no one to point at. So yeah, I mean, do we expect differently though?
There's been so many cases where they've taken money and stolen money and whatever the case may be, and nothing's really happened, no reprimand, nothing, you know. So yes, they've done well because they've shown people what's actually happened, but I don't necessarily think that people are going to get a slap on the hand.
They don't have a heart for this nation, to tell you the truth. If they did, they would have sorted it out a long time ago. There's a lot of things on crime they could have sorted out, but they haven't. So the state capture is another one that shows that they're not hard on certain issues that are of utter importance for this nation to move forward.
Yeah, certainly the organs of states are starting to come right. I think most of the organs of states are being rebuilt, if I may put it that way. So yeah, things will start to turn around. I've got trust in Cyril and the people that have been appointed in those organs of states.
Yeah, I don't see. There's no such a thing as justice. You know, if there was justice, everybody would be in jail by now. So it's just keeping people busy. That's all. News and stuff.
Well, Aviwe, I must say that the last individual that was speaking there on camera saying, yeah, it almost says a sentiment around South Africans, right? It seems as though people at this moment in time feel a little bit defeated and not necessarily so trusting in the wheels of justice and the possibility that arrests actually will be made. And one wonders at this point, was there any point to even having the Commission of Inquiry if we don't even have faith that somebody's going to be brought to book?
Well, in that front, Faith, there was a bit more optimism when you spoke to the people on the ground. I mean, as much as they do believe that arrests won't be affected, they do also believe, though, that the Commission and the work that it's done over the last 4 years has instilled some sort of fear to the people that were watching it, and in terms of them fearing being held accountable if they were to do these dodgy dealings in the background. You do understand that the 9th of January will mark exactly 4 years since this commission was announced, and over R1 billion has been spent, and we do understand coming to finalization on the 28th of February, where the acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo is supposed to hand over that final report to President Cyril Ramaphosa. So they say that as much as they don't believe that arrests will be affected, there has been a lot of work that has instilled some sort of good and some sort of fear to many South Africans when it comes to these dodgy dealings. I spoke to them in Africa's Golden Square Mile, Sandton. Let's take a listen to that.
I think it's worth it because people deserve the right to know what's happening, but whether there's going to be any implication, it's a different discussion.
People could, you could use Marikana as another example. Same thing, years, money, effort, people. What happened? Nothing.
I think it was all worth it. South Africans deserve to know what is happening behind the scenes, who's been taking money out of our coffers and so forth. So it was well worth it. I mean, I think Zondo Commission did a great job. Zondo himself did a great job. Although there was a lot of things they wanted to tarnish his name and so forth, but I think he stood his ground and did very well.
Well, if someone actually looks at it and gives attention to it, yes. But for now, no. I mean, I think we just, at this point in time, we're just overexpanded in South Africa. We've got too many things going on, too many loopholes, too many things that's not being closed down and looked after.
I think it was worth it, and I think more than anything else as a deterrent. You know, I think a lot of people now are more, you know, aware of what happened and are more concerned about the possible repercussions. You know, something might happen to them. So I think from that point of view, you know, I think it was a good, it's something that we have to go through.
The actions will prove whether it's been worth it or not. If they take action, then it would be worth it.
Heidi, to bring you back in here, when it comes to the former President Jacob Zuma, one would say that has become almost the face of what's been happening here with the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, almost the cornerstone of it. What has been said regarding his involvement, as well as the walking out, the notorious walking out of the State Capture Inquiry?
Yes, I think many South Africans were hoping that more would come out of part one of the state capture reports regarding how and if the former president, which was the president at the time, was involved in any way of the state capture. But it's very clear that there were definitely ties and connections with Dudu Myeni, who was appointed as chairperson of the SAA board because of her direct links and relationship to the former president. But what's interesting here, Faith, is the fact that the report highlights and says the fact that the former president, Jacob Zuma, fled the commission because he knew he couldn't answer to a lot. And I'll quote exactly from the report. It says, he fled the commission because he couldn't justify his instance that Myeni be retained at SAA, nor could he credibly deny Gordon and Nene's evidence that he wanted Myeni at SAA. So the report is very clear to say that we would have liked to have answers. We would have liked to have the version of former President Jacob Zuma and the version of Dudu Myeni, but they refused to answer. On the point of Dudu Myeni, she did not want to answer because she didn't want to incriminate herself, whereas the president, the former president, did not want to appear, and when he did appear, he literally walked out of the commission. And this is why Zuma has been slammed by the commission to say that he actively advanced the interests of the Gupta family, assisting them to capture South Africa, assisting them to have a hand in these state-owned entities like SAA, and we will possibly see when it comes to Eskom and Denel when those parts of the reports are also released.
Very interesting wording there. Fled being the word operative. Fled being not necessarily walked out. Fled being the operative word. We have to leave it there. Thank you very much to our reporters there, Heidi, Giokos, as well as Aviwe, Mtila, giving us the latest insights coming out from that State Capture of Inquiry report. It's been handed over to President Cyril Ramaphosa and, of course, been made known to the public. We'll also